Hello and welcome to downtown Raleigh, the roof of the News and Observer building. I'm Laura Keeley, here with my colleague Andrew Carter, who covers UNC. We're going to talk about some Tar Heel football. And I think the first question on anyone's mind, so who's the quarterback?
Well, before we get to that, Laura, I just want to note out there for you folks watching, look at the shirt I'm wearing. So, I don't want to hear any comments about
that was cute.
Or my rust-colored this or that.
You got some State, some Carolina, and some Duke.
Some red. Yeah, all three schools are represented.
Look at that.
So I just don't want to hear this stuff about the clothes I'm wearing. So,
you don't like the Hokies?
But anyway, getting back to your question, I fully expect to see a big fat or on the depth chart, Marquise Williams or Mitch Trubisky when that comes out on Monday. I think it's going to be Marquise Williams. I think
you do.
I think just Mitch Trubisky would have had to have a spectacular preseason camp to overtake that job, and I don't think he's done bad from what we're hearing, certainly. But I'm not sure that Mitch has been, the overwhelming outperformer, so to speak, during this competition. I think it's going to be Marquise. Marquise obviously has game experience. I think he's paid his dues. His teammates have raved about how far he's come in leadership. He's more vocal. He seems to be more kind of with it, I guess, is a fair assessment. He's more into it, more dedicated, putting more work into it. So I would be surprised if we reach the Liberty game and Marquise doesn't take the first set of snaps with the first team. But that said, it wouldn't surprise me either if this quarterback competition stretches on into the season a little bit. They play Liberty, they play San Diego State. They have a couple easier games to start the season with, and it would surprise me to see UNC give Trubisky some chances in those first two games just to see what he can do.
Sure. And I obviously don't cover the Tar Heels, but I read your stuff very closely. It's very good. You should read it too. But from an outsider's perspective, it almost kind of seems like Fedora and his staff wanted Trubisky to be able to win this job. He declared the competition open when he didn't have to do that. He had a guy that started, and did pretty well at the end of last year. So he very publicly opened the competition, has done everything to kind of try to foster this. And I just kind of wonder if, they weren't kind of somewhat hoping a little bit that Trubisky would rise to the occasion.
I think it's important to remember how Mitch Trubisky arrived at UNC. He was an early enrollee last year. He was among the most touted prospects in that recruiting class. He was Mr. Football in Ohio. So they've been very high on Trubisky, from the start. And also when he arrived, Marquise Williams wasn't there. He was out of school dealing with an academic issue. There were a lot of questions on whether he would even be back with the team, all that kind of thing. So I think Marquise surprised some people with how well he played last year. He started 6 games. He led UNC to victories, and really 5 of the last 6 games because he came in the NC State game in place of Brent Renner. But getting back to your question, I think it was more, Fedora emphasizing the fact that he does believe in competition. He does believe that every job is up for grabs. And I think he kind of wanted to light a fire a bit under Marquise, too. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, I really do think that he thought that Trubisky could win the job, and it's not out of the question that he does. I just think it's going to be Marquise in the first game.
Speaking of grand entrances and hype, I wish I had some pom-poms so we could say, H-O-O-D. Elijah Hood, is he going to, break Adrian Peterson's rushing record and win the Heisman and do all these really incredible things? Because people sure talk about him like he's going to do big things.
I think we need to temper the expectations a little bit with Elijah Hood, that we have heard great things, for a long time, basically since he enrolled. He's another early enrollee. He arrived in January. He went through spring practice, didn't really have a great spring game. And we don't get to watch scrimmages at UNC. We don't really get to watch practice at all. So it's difficult from a media member point of view to speculate on how good he might be because we don't get to see these guys, frankly. But all the things coming out of practice have been very positive. I know he was a little bit nicked up here and there. He was kept out of UNC's first scrimmage. He came back to practice later that week. But he's not going to be the kind of guy that breaks off, these 80-yard touchdown runs like his high school highlight tapes are full of. He's more of a bruising back. He's a big power guy. He likes to run through defenders. And this is kind of how they hoped A.J. Blue would be last year. But Blue was banged up the entire year last year, so they're hoping that Hood, really kind of emerges into that role. He can complement the other backs that they have very well. Romar Morris and, of course, C.J. Logan are faster, shiftier backs. So I think Hood has a chance to be good, has a chance to have a good year, but I think we need to just temper the expectations a little bit.
All right, so the big important question. Who is going to win the Coastal Division?
I said this at ACC kickoff in Greensboro, that I thought you could just crumple up about 5 names and ball them up and put them in a hat and pull one out and make an argument for any of those 5 teams. I mean, really, almost anyone except for Virginia, you can kind of make an argument for. A few weeks ago, my pick would have been Duke. I think Duke deserved to enter the season as a favorite in the Coastal, but obviously they've had some key injuries. Kobe Brown, Deaver out for the season. I mean, that really hurts those guys. So I think that lessens the likelihood that Duke wins. I might pick UNC. I mean, I might be buying the hype a little bit too much. I think these guys are kind of, I'm not sure where the expectations are coming from, really. If Phil Steele has them in the Orange Bowl, that's a little bit much for me at this point. I think Fedora and his staff and this team really need to prove that they can beat teams
like Duke
that are a little bit above them or equal.
And Duke.
They've had problems winning those games, but
especially
if the
against
offensive
Duke.
line comes together, I think they have a chance to have a pretty special year. So I'll go with UNC, but who knows?
You know what? I'm going to agree with you. I think the Tar Heels can do it. I think you look at their schedule. If they do what they can do and are capable of doing, there are 10 wins on that schedule.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
You know what? Sure. UNC is going to win the Coastal, and, people will be partying like Mac Brown was back in town. So for Andrew Carter, I'm Laura Keeley. Thanks for watching.